2021 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. If there's anyone that wishes to address the commission about an issue that's not on the agenda, as we are limited to what's on the agenda tonight, just get my attention during the meeting. We'll consider adding you to a future agenda. And let's start with the roll call here. Commissioner Ball.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Garrity.
Here.
Thanks. Commissioner Gibson. Garrison's absent. Commissioner Gilbert.
Chair Buss, both Commissioner Garrison is in California and Commissioner Gilbert is in the midst of a trial and has proceedings and other associated work this evening.
Oh, okay, great. All right. Commissioner Larson. Commissioner Montero.
I am here. Sorry about that.
That's okay, thanks. Commissioner Nucci.
Here.
All right. I am here as well. Looks like we have 5 on board today. Let's start with review of the meeting minutes from the, well, actually we have a lot of meeting minutes, as I recall here. How do you want to handle meeting minutes from February 10th subcommittee, John?
So Chair Buss, the commission, the full commission can approve subcommittee minutes if the subcommittee did not meet subsequent to the meeting documented by those minutes. So the full commission can review and approve. Okay.
Subcommittees are very rare. That's why I wanted a ruling on that. All right.
Sure.
Anyone have any changes to the February 10th subcommittee meeting minutes? Any changes or additions to that?
Quick point of order, Chair Buss and John. As I was not present at the last meeting, I will need to abstain on meeting minutes. Do we still have our quorum to go forward?
Vice Chair Ball, I believe we do. Let me pull up the HP ordinance here real quick.
We may have to wait on our meeting minute approvals.
Yeah, I apologize for missing those meetings, guys, but it was an insane month.
Not a problem. Let me here.
That's a motion I can second, Chairman or Vice Chair Ball. It was an insane month.
Yeah, coming out of COVID, I think it's sort of a buckle up and hang on, everybody.
Appreciate that you're here now.
So, Chair Buss, Vice Chair Ball, the ordinance says that when there is, well, the concurring vote of 5 members shall be necessary for interaction of the commission on any matter. The exceptions being that the HPO or Tempe History Museum manager or designee can act as a member on consent agenda items only, and only to the extent that this presence constitutes a quorum. That said, this is not agendized as a consent item, so it may be best if we just push back the approval of these minutes to our next meeting.
Probably wise.
Right. That's where
Thank you for bringing that up, Vice Chair Ball.
Yes, thank you so much. I assume that's where we were going on that. So we will have a lot of meeting minutes to consider next time, but let's move on to agenda item number 3. It's a presentation on a potential Ash Avenue Bridge rehabilitation. What can you tell us about that, John?
Thank you, Chair Bus. Brittany, I have a PowerPoint. I know the presenters have one as well. May I share my screen briefly? Okay, it should be coming up here. So the Ash Avenue Bridge approach and abutment is listed in the Tempe Historic Property Register as part of the Tempe Beach Park Stadium and Rock Wall listing. The designated area is shown in the light red polygon here. This is an approximate as relates to kind of this section of the designation. The Ash Avenue Bridge was completed in 1913. Unfortunately, it was in use for a relatively short period of time. The completion of the Mill Avenue Bridge eliminated the need for the Ash Avenue Bridge. The Ash Avenue Bridge had already been damaged. It sat in disrepair for many years. I believe it was 1991, where the vast majority of the bridge was demolished. What remains is the approach from north of Rio Salado Parkway, the embankments, which on the east side includes the bleachers, stone bleachers for the baseball field, and then the abutment, which is on the very northernmost reach of the photo here. The parcels to the west of it there, particularly the buildings, that is the former Penny Saver building. The address for that property is 250 West Rio Salado Parkway. There is a development firm, Hines, that is contemplating redevelopment of that property and a portion of the property to the north as well. As part of that, there is a discussion of potential rehabilitation of the Ash Avenue approach. So here to provide the Commission with an overview of the kind of preliminary plan is Brandon Dillingham from Hines, Mike Duffy from RSP Architects, and Manjula Vaz of Gamage and Burnham. And with that, Brittany, I will relinquish control here. I stopped sharing. I apologize if it takes a moment. It seems that my internet is once again being rather slow.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I don't know if you want to say anything, but Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Manjula Vaz with the law firm of Gamage and Burnham. We have a very brief presentation. John, thank you. And we want to thank Alex. Mike Duffy at RSP is going to give you a brief presentation kind of a plan that some of you may know about that Mark Vincent kind of started. But we anticipate, since this is very more of a high level introduction to the concept rather than we actually have a plan. We wanted to kind of walk you through a concept. We anticipate as we walk through this development that we will be coming to see you probably several times over the next 6 months. We hope that one of those times will be in person, but for the moment we're still like this. This is the team that you saw, that was involved. Obviously, Brandon Dillingham from Hines. We were all involved in the Hines, in the Hayden House and the 100 Mill development, which is going very well. And certainly, if you haven't been to the Hayden House, it's amazing. And we've had, I've been to an event there, which was amazing, and I look forward to going to many more. And this team is interested with your permission in moving forward with Alex and John and looking at kind of the Penny Saver building and then being, the sliver, which Alex and I talked about, is designated. So we understand there are issues related to that. So we're not asking for any type of approval. This is more information to give you kind of, if you will, setting the table of where we're going for this fall. So thanks, John, for those brief comments. I'm going to turn it over to Mike Duffy from RSP, and he's going to give you kind of a brief presentation, and then any of us are happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you very much, Manjula. And would I be able to share my screen as well? If that's possible.
Yes, give me one moment.
Great, thank you. Perfect.
Okay, you should be able to share now.
Perfect, I see it. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Perfect.
Yes.
Thanks again, John and Manjula. As Manjula and John mentioned, we'd like to talk to you a little bit today about the historic Ash Avenue and how it relates to our project that we're looking to develop with Hines, immediately adjacent on the Penny Saver site. Everyone's familiar with the site already. It is more or less the area highlighted in red here. That's the property that we are looking at developing. And as John already mentioned, as others are aware, there's these great historic resources at the site. The Ash Avenue Bridge abutment that was recently, or in the last 10 years or so, developed into a monument and historic feature, and the Tempe Stadium bleachers adjacent to that roadway abutment. A few more photos of the historic pieces, the original bridge, and a good shot of the overview next to Tempe Beach Park. Our project sits immediately to the west, and as soon as we started looking at this project, we knew that the park and Ash Avenue were going to be really important features to the site and things that we really wanted to embrace and really make the front door to our project. So our guiding conceptual principles, and in this diagram, north is to the left, so Ash Avenue is sort of paralleling this dashed line here. We want to celebrate historic Ash Avenue Bridge. We want to activate the Ash Avenue, historic Ash Avenue. We want to maximize views to the park. We want to connect to the beach park, and we want to create shade. And we think that Ash Avenue, or rehabilitation of Ash Avenue, can play an integral part in that. This is a preliminary site plan of ours. As you can see, the existing surface parking lot at the north of the site. Beach Park is just out of view here on the left. We've got the roundabout on the right, and as you can see at the top of the page is historic Ash Avenue and our project abutting up next to it. We are very familiar with Mark Vincent and the work that he did to provide an assessment of the resource a few years back, and we've had multiple conversations with Mark about his work there and his recommendations. So in that assessment, he had recommended the addition of some new paving, some stabilization work, and some opportunities to potentially highlight some of the historic features that are still there. Things like keeping intact some of the adjacent curbs and gutters at the edge of the roadway that still are in pretty good shape. And then also potentially providing some cutaways in this new paving so that you could actually highlight some of the existing historic roadway elements. And so ultimately what we're trying to do is sort of execute a lot of those recommendations that Mark had in his report. On the left-hand side, you'll see a sketch of what was proposed in that historic assessment. This addition of a new concrete topping on top of the existing roadway to repair, stabilize, and make code compliant that roadway to be used for pedestrian access. We've got some adjacent handrails that would need to be added. And then we've got the preservation of existing curbs and other features that are in good shape and can be preserved. And there's also a very significant element, which is the berming of Ash Avenue roadway itself, and the fact that it was elevated or is still elevated going to the bridge there. And there's some mitigations that probably need to happen to stabilize that abutment and that berming and provide a suitable place for plants. So on the left is the assessment proposal. and on the right is effectively what we're proposing, and we're trying to maintain as much as we can from that assessment with the addition of a building nearby. So still trying to maintain the berm, still providing new topping and stabilization of the road where needed, leaving in place and highlighting the existing elements that can remain, and then providing some landscape through that bermed area. A zoomed in shot of how that might look as it relates to our property. We've got, you know, a preliminary hatch pattern, if you will, or some idea of a paving pattern that has a lot of opportunity to create a great, you know, hardscape surface. And then in green here is all the areas that would still be landscape. And then a few zones at the north of our building, at a midway point, and at the south of our building, there would be these connecting elements that would happen at varying degrees of elevation to align with the slope of Ash Avenue. So as pedestrians circulate along Ash Avenue, at certain points they can connect across to our building and to some of the uses adjacent to Ash Avenue.
Hey, Mike?
Yep.
This is Alex. Can you go back to that slide, please?
I sure can.
So just to be clear to the commission, and I want to double check with you, there's the dashed line, which would be the new property line. And that column, the westernmost column line, and it looks like there's some remnant of a black line there. That's the existing property line. Is that correct, Mike?
That is correct.
Right. So there's an 18-foot strip, and we might as well just get this on the table now. In order to make this project work in terms of geometry, there's an 18-foot strip that we're proposing to trade, you know, exchange is a more real estate centric term, with the developer for some of the parking lot property that we currently have an easement for now, but it cleans things up a little bit. And as Ms. Voss mentioned, they'll take title to this knowing that that thing is listed. And I think the commission should focus on how that's treated and the suggestions for its treatment. And I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware that that's what the deal points are. And that's a lot. There's two main reasons that we're coming to you. One is the treatment of the approach itself, and then the interaction with the berm, the slope, whatever you want to call it, that's associated with the approach. Thanks, Mike. I'm sorry. I just want to get that out on the table.
No, appreciate you clarifying that. Yes. Yeah. So from a sectional perspective, that is this zone here that constitutes the berm. Yeah.
And so, is all that green going to be exposed, Mike?
Say that again. Sorry, exposed.
Yeah, like you can see the terrain, right? The actual dirt, or is that
correct?
Okay.
Yep, everything that you see green. I mean, we are proposing that it be planted and have landscape on it. But yes, it would be you would be able to see and perceive the sloping of the berm. That's kind of integral to the concept, is that we're trying to maintain all of that in that zone. But we would be providing planting and some stabilization as needed, which we're trying to do in concert with the assessment that Mark Vincent had made in his report.
And then go back just so we can get the commission squared away on where the overhang is. The overhang is going to be only on that north side, right? That's the dashed line right there under those on top of the column.
That's correct.
Move your cursor there. Yep. Thanks, Mike.
Yep. So we do have an element of the building that sort of hangs out over that the berming piece, and you'll see in the next slide we've got a conceptual sketch of how those elements might interact or look adjacent to each other. So yes, there is an element of the building that overhangs the berm itself.
And one more thing for the benefit of the commission, just to know that we've been working on this for quite some time, and Mr. Southard has educated me to some degree. There was a previous plan that was adopted, not adopted, that's a strong word, that was circulated within the city that was related to the Veterans Memorial specifically and how they treated that. And they had a bunch of trees in the actual approach, right? So rather than this sort of somewhat treeless landscape that you see here, there were trees actually in the roadbed, which I said was problematic. And so part of this overhang, yeah, thanks, Mike, it
Yep.
is for some shading for the building, and the planners are going to want a bunch of trees, and we're going to have to work that out with the commission to make sure that you guys are good with how we treat your approach and the slope, and then we'll go obviously to the planners and work everything else out. But I just wanted to get all this on the table for the commission right away, and then we can continue the dialogue. Thanks, Mike.
I appreciate that, Alex. Thank you. So the last slide we have is a conceptual rendering of how those two pieces might interact with each other. A concept that is trying to stay in line with a lot of the assessment, or a lot of the elements that were in the assessment by Mark Vincent. So a improved roadway with new concrete topping. You see the elements where we're highlighting some historic roadway sections. A new railing that flanks the property, or flanks the Ash Avenue on the west side, and then some connecting points across to our development to the west. And that's our last slide.
So, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, or John, I mean, we don't, I think we were just wanted to show you kind of, we've just started the process with the city. And so we aren't, I mean, we've been having conversations, but in terms of a planning process, we aren't very far in our planning process. We've had some comments back from planning, but we wanted to make sure that we came to you all, get some preliminary conversations. And what I anticipate talking to Alex and John is we'll be back, so again this summer, whether in June, July, I don't know, or August, however John would like, maybe August, and kind of talk you through where we're going. But if you have any preliminary comments, we'd certainly be happy to hear them, or thoughts. Or John, if you'd like us to do anything else, please let us know.
Modula, in this rendering here, is the roadway, is the old roadway what we're seeing off to the right? Is that what we're seeing?
Mike, do you want to answer that question?
Yeah,
Mike,
yeah, the roadway that you're seeing is this section here. So this is the roadway with new paving. The element that you see here, this is the new guardrail that was shown in the section. So we're actually basically standing on the roadway at the south end, looking towards the lake. Apologies, I should have done a better job setting this one up in terms of an orienting view. So we've got Tempe Beach Park on the right, we've got our property on the left. We're looking north to Tempe Town Lake. What you see here, that kind of post would be, I think that's maybe a flagpole down there by the bridge abutment in the distance.
Okay. So is this walkway goes over the roadway and the embankment? Are we still going to be able to distinguish as what it really was originally?
So what you would be able to, I'm going to go back to Mark's sketch because he's got a little bit more of a zoomed in view. So this is a plan view that Mark had prepared in his assessment, which shows the bleachers on the right-hand side, the ball field, we're looking up, and then kind of the berm is what he has shown here in these longer vertical rectangle elements that have the trees. And so the roadway itself, if I'm understanding the assessment appropriately, is the recommendation is that it has to be paved over and in order to be properly rehabilitated for use. And so the elements of the actual historic road, like the historic concrete, if you will, are in these revealed elements. So we've kind of got these cutaways that are shown here that actually kind of frame and preserve some of those historic elements. But the concrete surface that you see in the foreground would be effectively new concrete topping over top of the roadway.
Is the current concrete not capable of being reused?
That's my understanding of the assessment, is that the state that it is in does not allow it to be readily readily repaired in place and maintained, is my understanding. And we could confirm with Mark on that.
Okay, I'm just a little concerned that it's kind of losing its identity of what it really was, even with cutaways.
And one of the things that we took, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, Vice Chair Ball, I had a comment tying into Chuck's concerns there, I think. In looking in these two graphics on screen right now, in looking at Mark Vincent's assessment of how to make use and, in a way, adaptively reuse the existing abutment and approach, I think the critical thing from this, in order to read the roadbed on its approach to the bridge, is in fact the section which you are maintaining as a planting strip to the west of the old roadbed. And while I certainly understand Chuck's concern that we're losing too much of the character, perhaps that's something that could be continue to be explored in the paving pattern and the exact amount of the original surface given over to a view to the historic element versus creating a walkable, accessible approach to the abutment. I think the critical pieces remain in what you've given us a glimpse of, and that is that you have a sectional approach on the west side that is planted out, the roadbed itself, and then the bleachers on the east side. It's a really neat potential for this property as it's being developed to have that adjacency. And also it's a nice potential to perhaps activate the walkway and the roadbed. I think the real challenge and the art of this is going to be how do you maintain the character and the publicness of the original historic element with the new adjacency of a privately held structure. The shading of the roadbed does not bother me one bit. The sectional character is maintained. I think we just need to be assured that as you continue to develop, the character of the new corporate element versus the character of the publicly held element are two different things. So while I definitely love the idea of sort of nudging right up adjacent to it, I would caution you that as you continue to explore your design concept, that the two are distinct. And I had kind of a follow-up question. I see in the 3D view of the proposal that you had up on screen, we see, yes, we see sort of the north end of the building. Can you speak to the proposed uses that are adjacent to the walkway?
Definitely, yeah. So at the, one of the things central to our concept is this idea that we're really treating Ash Avenue and the park as our front door rather than Rio Salado. This is a very vehicular focused section of Rio Salado, especially with the new roundabout. And being so close to these great resources, we don't see how we can't address that as sort of the main focal point. And so what you see underneath the columns here, we've actually got a double height lobby. There is grade change that goes along with the site as Ash Avenue ramps up. And so our ground floor lobby and vehicular drop off is at a lower level. And then the second floor double height lobby actually enters at the north end of Ash Avenue. So that's what you see, a little bit of this glass beyond the trees there in the column line. Above that, you've got this big public outdoor space on the building for the building users, and then flanking Ash Avenue here, we have the opportunity for some commercial space adjacent to that. And we really see Ash Avenue being sort of the public pedestrian access for people going to and from, say, Mill Avenue. You're not getting in your car and driving down the street. You're walking to the east. You're walking through the park. You're walking along Ash Avenue back to Mill.
Not part of the purview of historic preservation, but I'm sure you'll hear from other folks as you continue to develop. there's a great opportunity to have an urban approach on the new roundabout side as well. Right now, I see that there's a very efficient parking layout there. I think that you'll probably be encouraged to explore what potential there is to create a shaded urban character frontage along that that side of the structure as well. So I would look for those opportunities because I think that a parking garage without activation, it would be a missed opportunity, even though the site is wonderful to look at from this side.
Yep, understood. And we're definitely looking at opportunities to capitalize on that south end as well.
And all of this on a postage stamp, so
yes,
no challenge there.
A lot of room to work with. It's great.
Mike, I had another question. If I've
Sure.
seen this right, it looks like part of the western embankment is disappearing, being encroached on.
So it's a little bit difficult to read in this elevation because the berming is actually falling away from us. So if I jump back to the section here real quick, or actually maybe this plan will show, but effectively so we're standing kind of down here looking in that rendering, that is looking this way, if you will. And this slope is actually sloping away. So, and there's a decent amount of drop. I think from here to here, it's about a 12-foot difference from, kind of the parking level here to the top of Ash Avenue. So there's a decent slope, close to 30 to 40% in some areas. So it falls away pretty quickly. So when you're on Ash Avenue, you really aren't able to see the berming itself. And what you're seeing in our conceptual sketch is landscape that's actually coming up from there. So pretty soon after this, so like you can kind of tell in this tree, you're seeing kind of a canopy up there, but the actual base of the tree would be down lower in that berming. But if I understand your comment, I think there's a concern about making sure that we can still maybe perceive some of that character from the roadway and make sure that it's apparent and visible, right? I think that's
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It seems like the building mass is encroaching onto the.
Yeah, that's not the intent. Again, this is an early sketch, and so we can definitely make sure we're keeping in mind that concern as we develop that edge.
Okay.
Hi,
Does anyone else have?
Sorry about
Yes.
that.
Well,
I have a comment. So having a little trouble conceptualizing how this ties in with that section of the bridge that's remaining. And I know we're going to see more over the months to come, and maybe you might consider including some photographs, that from the area and kind of marking how things are going to connect and tie in. Just my comment.
Yeah, understood for sure. I mean, I think right now, we haven't obviously addressed that connection point in this, but yeah, the idea would be we sort of seamlessly tie into the improvements that were made at the abutment edge, because right now, if I recall correctly, it sort of ends at kind of a chain link fence barrier at that north end of the site, and so we would either try to tie in those two paving pieces, or if there's anything that we do with this new improvement to sort of seamlessly match those two elements as best we can.
Hey, Mike, why don't you, while we're on the subject of the northern end, why don't you go ahead and go to those ADA ramps real quick so we get that on the table as well?
Sure. Yeah, so one of the things that you'll see at the north end of the property is a reconfiguration of the existing switchback ADA ramps that bring access from the parking lot in its current state to the top of the abutment. And the reason we're doing that is for a number of reasons. We're trying to improve that situation and provide potentially some better access to Ash Avenue after it gets rehabilitated and potentially is being used more. And then we're also working with some site constraints, in that there's a challenge in maintaining everything that's out there today in its current state. And so with looking at this a little bit more holistically, we're trying to improve upon that, and in doing so, reconfiguring that ramp and providing sort of this grand staircase element at that northeast corner of the site.
This is Commissioner Garrity. I have a question as well, or a comment more. You know, the roadway and the abutment are, the elephants in the room here as far as the HP Commission is concerned. But there are also archaeological concerns in this area. Those of you who were involved with the 100 Mill project are probably aware we found what I suppose could be described as the sort of western edge of some Hohokam prehistoric habitation area or settlement. And that area goes to the east from 100 Mill, and it could very well go into this area. So just want to put that on your radar and make you aware that there are potential archaeological concerns in this area in addition to the historic structures. Thank you.
Yeah, great point. Thank you.
Yes, yeah, Commissioner Garrity, thank you very much. We, that is one of the first things we thought about as we were, as you remember what happened with 100 Mill, and as we know going east, we have it on our radar, and we may all be speaking here in the near future, but that's certainly one of the priorities we have kind of going forward as we kind of figure out what to do. So, but we appreciate the comment.
All right, thank you very much.
Chair Buss?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So just to follow up on something that Vice Chair Ball said, the art of this is going to be how that approach and that embankment interact with the building and still drive a much needed pedestrian access from Rio Salado into Tempe Beach Park and into the abutment, right? That's one of the public benefits of this deal, right? Is the same as we did with 100 Mill, is that the rehabilitation of this roadbed is going to be used for ingress and egress to and from Tempe Beach Park by the public. And we want to make sure that we do it right. And that's what we, that's why we're here to see you guys, is we want to hear from you on what you think we need to do to make this be the right way, or to do it the right way, I should say.
Right. I appreciate that, Alex. Yeah, I think that's the concern, making sure that we still know something, we can still see something and know something about the original roadway, and making sure the embankment isn't lost by the building encroaching too much. Do we have any more comments on it?
If we don't have any more comments, we appreciate everybody's time, and certainly if you have questions, please reach out to me or to John and Alex, and Mike and I would be happy to come answer some questions, but we anticipate being back, over the next several months, and we appreciate all your feedback and your time. We're looking forward to this project, and we're looking forward to working on this project with you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks, Manjula.
All right, thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's move on to item number 4, a presentation on Character Area 1, which is Papago and North Tempe area.
Bus, thank you. Yes, Character Area 1 includes the vast majority of land in Tempe north of the Salt River. The Commission may recall over the last few years there's been Character Area 4, I believe, which was Apache Boulevard area, Character Area 3, which was downtown. They're now moving north of the river, and we have individuals from Community Development Department here to speak to the planning process, progress thus far, and what the next steps are. Robbie Aaron and Ambika Adhikari are both here to make a presentation on the Character Area 1 planning effort.
Thank you, John. This is Ambika Adhikari from the Community Development. I'm also joined by Robbie Aaron. Let me see if I can share my screen. This is something in the WebEx I haven't done, so bear with me. Okay. Can you see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so good evening once again. Thank you so much for making time for us to make this brief presentation on Character Area 1. I will, today between me and Robbie, will provide you an intro to the Character Area planning and then its contents. And then we'll also provide you just a very brief review of the outcomes of the few meetings that we had and some surveys we already had. And then the upcoming Autocracy, the preferential survey that we are having until June 30. And then we'll provide you the timeline for this particular plan. This is our branding. The characterareas.tempe.gov has a lot of information about the effort that we're making. And you can also see our contacts. You can also see the records of the meeting and any other document. You can also go to the survey that is open until June 30 if you like and participate on that or spread the word. As you all very well know that Tempe is divided into 8 character areas, and like John mentioned, number 3 and number 4 were the latest. Actually, number 3 was the last. The one on top, number 1, is the one that we are working on. The character area number 1 geographically is about 3.35 square miles, which is about 8.5% of the total city of Tempe geography. Population-wise, about 10,000. And then the rest of the 2019 census data is pretty compatible with the rest of the city, except maybe the median household is slightly less in character area number 1 compared to the city. Here is a diagram that you have in your packet, which has more information from the 2019 census. Actually, 2010 census updates of 2019. Now the 2020 census is out and some of the details are out. We'll be updating this to show the age of the housing, the education level, split up the different age groups of the people in the community, and any other information that is relevant. We officially started the planning process on March 15th, and we held 2 meetings on that date. And then also we opened up a survey for about 2 weeks from that date. And then the second 2 public meetings were held on May 11th. I will give you a little brief on those meetings and outcomes. We have 2 pop-up meetings coming in June, one on June 14th, the other one in June 26th. Both of them are going to be on site at Papago Park, Ramada, and we'll provide the details on that also. The survey that I just spoke about is open until June 30. This is something I don't have to belabor the point with you. You know that the scope of the character area plan is much more high-level policy. It is not regulatory. And the division is still evolving as we consult with people and commissions like you. And then also do the mapping of the character defining elements, which we've already begun to do. And also listen to the people what they think gives them the traits of the character for that area. The most important component of the character area plan is going to be the design guidelines and principles that the staff and any applicants can refer to when they propose any new design, any new planning or redevelopment, so that the new development is compatible with the existing character. Now, in terms of those meetings, the first meeting on March 15, this is a metadata, I can skip that. There were a number of questions that were asked of the people, and they continue to give us a preference in terms of what they like and what is something that they want to continually enhance. And the listing goes something like canal side trails, multi-use paths, streetscape, park enhancement, and they continue to think that the open space as a part of the land use should be increased, and then residential areas should also be increased. And going forward, because the place is almost like a food desert, there should be drugstores and groceries prepared for the land use, although the character area plan cannot really enforce those kind of things, but obviously we can write the preferences of the community, and then maybe we can go one step more detailed than the general plan to promote those kind of land use activities. Now, the summary of some of those meetings, again, are listed here. The residents and the people who participated in the meeting do believe that the area is ripe for investment and remains attractive for businesses. And in terms of the initial thinking of the design criteria for the improvement of the area, the shaded walkways and more environmental friendly design were some of the elements that people spoke about. And the opinions were split between looking for low-rise buildings and high-rise buildings. And we'll continue to ask what they think. And then there was also interest on public art, affordable housing, and the outreaches. This is the graphic representation of the same survey. About 60 people participated on that after March 15th, which was open until the beginning of April. We spoke about their preference on the new land uses. And then at the meeting, we also made a note of some of the phrases and elements that people spoke about. Between the two meetings on March 15th, I think there were like 50 people who attended, or 45. And then the May 11th meeting, between the two meetings, I think we had about 25, 30 people. So many concepts of what is important for them in terms of the desert landscape, the area that is defined by the characters of geology, history, and the trees. Now, we've been using the tautocracy methodology for the character area planning to get the preferences from the residents and the stakeholders. We give them 10 dots. If you go to the survey right now, we get 10 dots. You can spend it any way that you want. And there are 15 principles that have been listed, which were based on the first 4 meetings. And for each one of them, we have done some draft principles, and people can vote by reading those principles. Those principles are under these headings that were picked up by the first few surveys: the landscape, mobility, connectivity, streetscape, public art, historic preservation, sustainability, and those sorts of elements. And when we asked about the priority on the second survey, which is still open until the end of June, but the last we checked, people continue to look for shade and then address the issues of the climate change, green infrastructure, housing, balancing of the land use, and a lot of things about the green type of design and energy and mobility. Those are some of the things that people have been providing. As of now, I think about 45 or 50 people have participated in the survey. Hopefully in the coming 2.5 weeks, more people will participate. Now, for this particular commission, we've been going to several commissions, and we know the Historic Preservation Commission has its own mandate and interest. And Character Area 1 is pretty rich with some of the historic buildings and some other inventories that is being created right now. So we would like to ask you if there are some among the priorities that was shown to you, if there's something that will serve your interest. And you can either write to us on chat today, or you can send us an email. I'll provide the email address at the end of the slides. You can take your time and then respond to us. You can also go to the survey and participate, and we can also have some discussions after the presentation. The other specific question we wanted to ask you was an open-ended priority that we haven't listed. The standard ones, the historic preservation, the landscaping, shade, green infrastructure. Many people talk about it, but there's anything specific that you want us to consider, that is also something that we would very much like to hear back from you. In terms of the timeline, the survey remains open until June 30. Once again, it's characterareas.tempe.gov. And we continue to go to different commissions and boards, especially this month. It's many, because we are just introducing the topic and gathering the initial ideas from everyone. So the overall timeline, the first two boxes are already checked. The kickoff meetings on March 15th, the second virtual meeting on May 11th, the June 14th, which is next Monday, and the 26th, the two meetings, they've already been announced. The postcards have been mailed, and it's also on the Facebook. There's also email blast that is going. So hopefully we'll get many people who would come, although when I look at the temperature, it's going to be pretty hot. The first meeting is at 6 p.m. on June 14th. On June 26th, it is in the evening. It's in the morning, 9 a.m. And then throughout the summer, we'll continue to work on the outline, go to the boards and commissions. And then in the winter, we'll go to the council on a work study session that would be a public meeting setting. And then hopefully towards the end of the year, a beginning of 2022, we'll have a draft that would have been vetted by the public and different stakeholders that we can take to the council for their consideration. That is the timeline. This is the last slide. You can always write to us, or even if you visit characterarea.tempe.gov, there's also a contact. You can also send us comment from that. You can also participate in that survey. But if you would like to tell us anything, or if you have any questions today, both Ravi and I are open here today. Thank you so much, Chair Boss and Commission members.
Thanks, Ambika. Does anyone have any thoughts on this?
Vice Chair Ball, just a quick note. I think to speak to some of the existing resources that occur in North Tempe, the area north of the river, I think that I would agree that there's a great opportunity to improve the connectivity to some of the infrastructure. For instance, I think it's the Crosscut Canal Trail is a really great way to see some of the historic SRP canal infrastructure in North Tempe that really is one of the foundational elements for the valley. So I would echo resident responses that you've highlighted in your presentation, that there's some really wonderful ways to do simple things or to encourage simple things like that to happen that would improve the visibility of our historic infrastructure.
Vice Chair Ball, thank you so much for that comment. We are very thankful. I think that's very important. Brittany, if you can unmute Robbie, maybe he can speak a few words. We've been taking pictures and we've been making visuals because that's something very important, like Vice Chair Ball said. We actually have been, for quite some time, we've been thinking about canal-oriented design, and maybe this gives us a really good segue. Robbie, if you're on, would you like to add anything?
I think you kind of nailed it on the head, Vice Chair Ball, with not only is it a good element for North Tempe, I think they really take pride in the crosscut canal path. When I was out there, just kind of walking around, taking pictures for like initial research and things like that, there was a lot of people using it. I had a lot of people walk by, running, biking, just walking, with their dogs, with their family. So it's a really well utilized path, and I agree that it's a really good way to kind of highlight some of the history of not just Tempe, but the valley as a whole, and the whole reason that we even are able to exist here.
Yeah, I think that's worth great exploration in the coming months, and any creative way to highlight that is, I think, is much appreciated by those who love history.
Thank you so much. Thank you also, Robbie. Any other thoughts, questions, comments? I do request that we put some questions on the slides in terms of your thoughts and priorities. I know that hear from you so we generally have an idea what you think in terms of historic preservation, which will be highly valued in the project. But if there are anything specific elements, just like Vice Chair Wall talked about, please feel free to send us an email, give us a call, or put it in the survey.
All right, thanks, Ambika and Robbie.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to agenda item 5, chair and staff. What do you have to tell us, John?
Chair Boss, I believe the revised agenda has an additional item in it. I believe the item you just referenced is now agenda item 6. Agenda item 5 being presentation on alterations to the Tempe National Bank building.
Yes, all right.
Oh, it's quite all right.
All right. Well, let's hear about that then.
Okay.
I forgot to print out a revised one.
Not a problem. Let's see here. Click share content. Let's see if it. Okay, should be coming up in just a moment here. So at the last meeting, there was, and I'm trying to change this to full screen for everyone here. At the last meeting, there was a request for a certificate of appropriateness for repainting the Tempe National Bank building at 526 South Mill Avenue. It is a property that is both listed in the Tempe Historic Property Register and protected by a facade conservation easement that covers the south and west elevations. Can everyone see the slide here?
I've still got a white screen on my computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, not yet.
Let's give it another shot here.
I recall the commission had questions about some other things that had been done to the property, but
Yes, indeed. If I exit out of the full screen, the PDF is all white now.
John, have you shut down your Adobe and opened it back? Oh, there you go.
You can see it now?
The assessors came up, but not the Tempe H. I'd shut it down and then start it back up, just the PDF, because sometimes it runs out of memory. It's a problem on mine anyway, on the Surface.
Okay.
Just close all the tabs and open it back up real fast, and it'll probably work out for you.
Okay.
It never ceases to happen when I'm on something with council or a presentation to a board or commission. It never happens when it's just me. The computer knows we're you know, on the clock for someone else.
And I seem to have particular issues when I'm using WebEx.
I was going to quiz you, John, on the next item about when we might be to meet in person. Wait till that next item.
Well, Best I will say as I'm trying to get back to that presentation, that is a good question. I do not have an update on that.
I heard one rumor that maybe August or September.
I think that's probably a little bit more than a rumor, Chair Boss. I think
Okay.
that's a an aspirational
There you go. That's the way to
thing.
put it. I don't like to overstate things, so.
I think the council's planning on coming back maybe in that first meeting of August to the council chambers.
Mhm.
I think there's probably still some limited capacity issues. I don't know for sure. I don't want to, overstate what's going on, but from the last, I think it was a work study session, that was the general direction to move forward with opening it up with still a limited capacity. And I think for the HPC meetings, we might not have the capacity issues we'd like, right? It's a problem we'd love to have, but
That's true. I don't think we'll overfill the chambers.
we might be able to spread out in the chambers and be just fine, Chair Bus.
Right.
We can take up 2 seats apiece and still be okay.
It looks like we're making progress here.
Good, good. Is there a slide that says agenda item 5 on the screen?
Yes,
Indeed, there is.
Good, good. So the commission, during the discussion regarding the repaint, there was discussion of alterations mentioned in the staff report, alterations that did not receive a certificate of no effect or a certificate of appropriateness. Chair Buss and members of the commission asked for a presentation outlining the alterations that have been made. So I went out there, took photos, compared those to past photos and plans, pulled as much documentation as possible, and have the following to present. For a quick overview for everyone, this is the Tempe National Bank building. It is at the northwest corner of 6th Street and Mill Avenue. It was built in 1912 in the Egyptian Revival style. The architect was Leighton G. Knipe, architect slash structural engineer. He was rather busy at the time. In addition to Tempe National Bank, he had designed the Tempe City Hall, which preceded our current City Hall. So he was busy in Tempe and throughout the valley. The Tempe National Bank building was not always treated as sensitively as we would have liked. This is a photo of it from 1984. When you compare it to the photo here taken shortly after its completion, of course, the difference is rather drastic. However, there was a rehabilitation effort in 2005, I believe into early 2006. The building was listed in the Tempe Historic Property Register, and as previously mentioned, the city received a facade conservation easement that protected both the south and east elevations. This is a photo of the Tempe National Bank in January of 2006. So at the completion of that rehabilitation effort, this is at the time of listing. It's actually painted in colors that are very similar to the colors that the commission approved via a certificate of appropriateness last month. Now, prior to that certificate of appropriateness for the repaint, the last HP approval, be it a certificate of no effect or a certificate of appropriateness, was issued in November of 2018. This 2-page letter documents that approval. It is a certificate of no effect or an administrative approval, and this was for a relatively small project. They wanted to install a fold-down attic letter, remove some unused conduit, and tie it off, prop or cap off former coolant lines, remove some parge fascia, minor things really. And this is the approval that was provided for that. Now, prior to this, earlier in 2018, there was a conversation with the lessee. In early 2018, we met with the lessee. He outlined some plans, preliminary plans for alterations. There was some discussion of their appropriateness or lack thereof. As the conversation continued, this email was received in, and I apologize, it says May 8th, 2021. It's actually May 8th, 2018. But the email informed the Historic Preservation Office that the exterior was going to be left as it is, just some minor things, repair and damage plaster, etc. So at that point, really no additional concern or monitoring part of the HP office. And as it turns out, there was a permit submittal. This was in the summer of 2018. So after there was a notification that no exterior modifications would be made, I've highlighted some of the items on the sheet here and subsequent sheets. And notice for zoning, it mentions the Transportation Overlay District, doesn't mention the Historic Preservation Overlay. Here, this rectangle is a new ADA ramp, relocating a door to this location, installing an outside bar, raising the front patio to the level of the existing building, adding new concrete steps, new railing. This appears to have been approved by an outside inspector, which is an option for applicants. Here we have a demolition plan, removal of existing concrete stairs, and a new concrete pour to match existing building slab. In addition to here, existing walls to be removed. Here we have the ramp, and here the raised concrete slab. In addition, windows and doors, or doors rather, that were to be added. All of these things, items that would require a certificate of appropriateness, which was not received. Here is a photo depicting, this was, I believe, June 3rd of this year, showing that the front area has in fact been raised. I believe the next photo may show it better. This is the front door, actually. Here's the raised front patio to include the new stairs that were added. Here's a view of that to the southwest, along with the roll-up garage-style doors and the new railing out front. This is a photo of the ADA ramp that was poured against the building on the south elevation. So that is a recap of alterations that were made that were not approved via a certificate of no effect or certificate of appropriateness. Now, unfortunately, they were approved by other offices within the city, but did not go through the process specified in Section 14A6 or the process through which a building that is subject to a facade conservation easement would normally be reviewed.
Thanks, John. I'm assuming since other city departments gave approval, there's nothing that can be done about it now, but how do we make sure this sort of thing doesn't happen again in the future?
Chair Buss, that is a very good question. I believe it's something that the HP plan may be able to address to some degree. I think there is the clearer processes, certainly as relates to easements, perhaps need to be developed, and it would be beneficial to look into some sort of means of locking particular property addresses or parcel numbers in the system until the needed approvals are received. That, I would hope, would preclude issuance of permits or other approvals for designated properties or HE classified properties or properties subject to a facade conservation easement. The ordinance itself has very little recourse for us. If there's a violation, it essentially defers to the city manager's office. There's no specified punishment in terms of fine or process. So you are correct in the sense that, yes, there is relatively little that can be done here, although it is certainly a valuable case study that we can learn from in terms of what we need to do to ensure that our historic resources are managed as they deserve.
Right. I have run across this issue with, I don't know, maybe I'm getting beyond the scope here, but I can tie it back in. I think the Tempe Building Department has not been very reactive to issues that have come up. Residential additions that are unpermitted, and there's no enforcement against them later on. And it seems like that has also spilled over into historic matters now with this case. Seems to me our building department needs to do a better job. I myself was renovating homes a few years ago, historic homes in Phoenix, and I can tell you over there, they seem to have their act together better. If you tried to get a building permit, there was an immediate red flag and you were told to the top of 17th floor City Hall to the historic preservation first before they ever issued a building permit.
Well, and Chair Buss, to John's point, you know, when he mentioned a lock in the system, the reason that we're at the point where he can mention a lock is because we've worked with our IT team and we do receive notifications now, and that wasn't happening at the time this occurred. So there's been a vast improvement on that because, frankly, because of this matter, right? We got a little frustrated and did some work to fix most of that. You know, we're 75% there in terms of the electronic side of it. I think we have another 25% to go. And as John mentioned, the best way to approach that is probably, you know, looking at when we get the HP plan more fully developed, how, you know, and the finer details of that, suggesting something like that.
Right. So I guess Phoenix has been ahead, but we're catching up.
Yeah, Vice Chair Ball, to speak to that point, I think particularly for those buildings that have an easement placed on the facade, we certainly should be able to place a red flag on those. Perhaps one of the things that we could do with regard to the HP ordinance, or it might be within development services foundational documents, is to identify that if permit by inspection is allowed within City of Tempe, those buildings that have an HP overlay need to have a permit by inspection inspector or issuer who is trained to deal with HP issues, or that HP overlay structures are not allowed to run through the PBI permit process. That would allow for a lot of those things that seem very normal. It would probably preclude those from sort of flying under the radar and feeling to them as though all is normal and well with the decisions that are being made to move forward on a PBI project. Either train them up or just take it off the table for HP structures in order to, you know, stop this kind of thing from happening in the future. And I agree that, you know, a simple flag in the database is a great idea. I feel bad for John, however, who's going to have even more people at his desk when they're trying to get something done. However, I think that that's definitely an easy remedy that can be made of these things that will continue to happen.
So, Chair Buss, if I comment on that, please. Couple things. One, as an official member of the Community Development Department, I just want to get that out there. There's no building department; it's the Community Development Department. We're all on the same team. To that end, though, there is a member of our PAT team, right, that does, we call them BDPRs. It's a planning and building safety permit all in one. And there's one particular planner on that staff that has been assigned to the bulk, if not all, of the preservation projects. And again, that was an outcome of this incident and a change that we made on the spot. And that individual, I don't know, John can help me out if he has any formal training, but he is certainly well versed in preservation practices and techniques, and he's done us a number of favors, I'd say, in keeping an eye on things since this incident. Is that an accurate statement, John?
Yes, Chair Buss, the individual is actually well known to the commission. It is Hansen. At one point, he served as HPO. And has a great deal of experience with the office and has been involved in many Tempe HP projects over the years, and is someone who is a very strong supporter of preservation and does his darndest to ensure that any building, any project that may have HP concerns, designated or not, is discussed and more fully considered. So that change has been very beneficial.
Thanks, John, for letting us know about that. And thanks, Alex, for correcting me on my antiquated ways of calling up the building department. All right. Did anyone have any comments, additional comments on this? No.
How do we encourage our building owner to go back to the original structure? We need to find a way.
It was a beautiful building originally.
Yes, it was.
And Chair Buss, Vice Chair Ball, there is a study, I suppose, completed by the brother of a former owner. The study raised questions as to what degree of historic fabric may be present underneath the stucco. There are areas, exposed areas of brick on the east side of the building, one toward the top, one in the front patio area. I don't know that we have documentation of what was found underneath. I don't know that at the time of the rehabilitation they fully stripped the building. I do believe that at one point the historic columns were removed. They've subsequently been replaced with columns of a different design, but it is entirely possible that this building has the potential to look far more similar to what we saw from the image of the early 20th century there.
It'd be nice if we could encourage the owner to reveal some of that. He might find his building more appealing and make more money out of it. I don't know. People like interesting old structures.
We do have an example, just as an aside, of a warehouse rehabilitation in City of Phoenix in the warehouse district that our firm worked on a couple of years ago, where we did remove stucco from the exterior surface painstakingly by hand. And that particular structure, it's in a great location and has a good lease up rate now, but it just sold for a good profit. So I think it's at the high watermark in the warehouse district for commercial space. So perhaps I'll see the light of that. This is a great location on Mill Avenue, and it still has some beautiful attributes. So keep our fingers crossed.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing that, Marty. Any other comments? No? All right. Well, let's move on to chair and staff updates.
Thank you, Chair Buss. I don't recall if it had been delivered by the the time of the last meeting, but we have 150 tons of soil from just south of the Gonzales Martinez property at approximately 5th and Farmer is the source of the soil. On site for Reggie McCabe of Adobe Technology to use for the emergency stabilization of the Gonzales Martinez house. So that project is officially underway. I believe there's a great deal going on, but in terms of projects worthy of announcements, I believe that is it. Certainly, Alex, if I'm missing something, feel free to chime in.
No, I think you covered it, John.
All right. Well, thanks, John. Did anyone else have any announcements to make? Anything we wanted to talk about? No? All right. Well, then let's conclude this January 9th meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission.
Oh, Chair Bus?
Yes, go ahead.
My apologies. I wasn't sure if we were on agenda item 7. I do have some announcements for the museum.
Okay, yeah, I was being rather informal about the number of the.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I'll just make just have a few announcements. We have from the museum a number of things going on. In fact, today we just started up with our annual summer event that will be going now every Wednesday until I believe the end of July, and that's the Tempe Time Machine. And it was completely online last year with everything that was going on. This year it is now it's actually being people can come pick up the kind of a kit, as it were, from the little room that we have back in the kids area. We have little barn doors that slide open, and there we have a classroom back there. And so people can come in with their kids, pick those items up, and take them home and do a craft. And what we had today, it's everything this year is geared towards the 150th anniversary, and so that that expanse of history for Tempe. And today it was I believe a kit to design your own cowboy boots, to harken back to Tempe's early days of lots of cowboys and cattle being driven down to Tempe and things like that. So folks are getting to make their own cowboy boots today. Probably not wearable, but it won't be for lack of trying, I'm sure. Next week, just to give a preview for that, it will be a little the session for Wednesday, and I think people can come in and pick up their kits all day. So that's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. And the kits are going to have to do with Dr. Stanke from ASU, who was a internationally renowned man who studied scorpion venoms and also created anti-venoms. So if anybody has a special interest in scorpions and doing a craft related to that, well, that'll be next Wednesday. And Tempe Time Machine is it's primarily geared towards families and kids, because that's what it goes back to our old Wild Wednesday events in past years. So, but that again, that'll be going on until the end of July. You can visit the museum website, and if you go there to look for that page, go to the bar on the left. It'll be under education, and then when you click on education, you'll scroll down to the 4th item, which is Tempe Time Machine, and that will get you the information that you need for upcoming Time Machine events. So there's that, which is going on again the next couple months on every Wednesday. And we also have the Juneteenth festival is Friday, June 18th from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And that's the celebration of emancipation. that based on the June 19th, 1865, when a federal commander declared all slaves to be who hadn't already been released, that basically that was the end of slavery in Texas. So of course it's gone to a larger holiday that's around the country now. That event will be at the museum to celebrate that. Now it's actually, I say it's at the museum, but there's also going to be a virtual component because as we all know, it gets a little warm that time of year. So there will be a virtual component to that, but for folks that would like, they can come to the museum from 7 to 9 p.m. on Friday, June 18th. And again, you can go to the museum's website and check go to the calendar of events and go to the June 18th, the events for the month. Click on that, and that will get you the information about the event. And one last thing that I'll add, we of course check our calendar for other events and things going on. One last thing to add, the museum is back on site now. We did have partial staff for a while, but and we've been at least partially open since April. Now we're actually open from Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. all those days, and so we're basically mostly back up and running again. So anyway, just want to make those announcements. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, certainly come on down. We have air conditioning too. So thank you, Chair Buss.
And Chair Buss, Jared,
Yes.
if I may share I suppose a fun fact, Dr. Stanke that Jared mentioned, working in partnership with Senator Carl Hayden, he is the reason that it is legal to mail a scorpion through the United States Postal Service.
Does that mean that there will be a scorpion in an envelope in the bag?
Probably not, but you can come find out, maybe a little fuzzy scorpion or something, right?
Scorpion paper.
Right.
If any commission members want one, they're welcome to stop by my house. I have a surplus, so I'm happy to hand them out.
I got a guy.
I have them too.
Oh.
I'm happy to live in a 50s neighborhood. There are no such creatures now.
Yeah, it's something. John, I was just reading about that in an article today about that very moment when the Senator Hayden was in town speaking with Dr. Stanke, because the postal delivery union in Tucson, and I think even part of this region, with the arrangement he created a special carrier, a tube that was cardboard and lined with plastic, and then had end caps on it. And the carriers were okay, but the postmaster back in Washington, D.C. was not yet. So Dr. Stanke spoke with Senator Hayden, convinced him, who then went back to the Postmaster General to convince him. So
Love it.
That's a fun
thusly
nugget.
they could, right? Well, here's one last thing about Dr. Stanke. He at a couple different times he was looking for people to contribute and donate up to 10,000 scorpions to create anti-venoms. So wrap your mind around, well, maybe don't. Well, so, but I believe they got thousands of scorpions. One lady contributed at least 7,000 scorpions. So how about that? But we won't have those 7,000 at the museum, so don't worry about that.
All right. Did anyone else have any comments? No?
I'm good.
All right. I guess that's a wrap for the January 9th, 2021 Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
June 9th.
7:32. Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you next month.